come to order. It's only been a few hours since our last hearing. We'll begin by taking the items in order. We'll begin with item 1.
Meg Barclay, COA's office. Item 1 is a motion, Cardenas Garcetti, instructing the Departments of Recreation and Parks, General Services, and the Police Department, and the City Administrative Officer to report relative to the At the Park After Dark program.
Anybody here? Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, what's been our experience with this type of program in the past, or currently, I should say?
Well, I guess I'll start. Carl Cooper, Recreation Parks, and I'm glad to see you up this morning.
Yeah. Third meeting.
Yes. And we're going to apologize because some of our senior staff were going to be here, but they got pulled away. So we are pinch hitting, and we'll give you what we have from the program. But this was a program that was run in CD13 this past summer with Council President Mr. Garcetti's staff and the Recreation Parks Department, with collaborations with some of the CBOs in the area. And it was a late night added programming for youth in the summer. And it was run, I guess it was Wednesday through Saturday. There were actually everything from recreation programs, there were sports programs, late night swimming, the gamut. But it was actually coordinated by both offices along with some of the CBOs in the area. And we heard it was, we were told it was very successful.
What were the hours that it was extended from, the regular hours to this?
It varied, but basically to give you a brief overview, it was Wednesday, Thursday nights 8 to 11, Fridays was 8 to midnight, and Saturdays was 5 p.m. to midnight.
And otherwise, the staff would have gone home at about what time?
Most weekdays, you're talking Monday through Thursday, probably close anywhere between 9 and 10 o'clock, depending on programs. And most of the programming after 8 o'clock are usually adult sports, other activities like that. So to have youth programming that late after 8 o'clock is something that's a little different. Friday, Saturday night, sometimes we do have late programs.
Children?
No, not at all. No, that's just usually parents don't want their kids out at 9 o'clock in a recreation program, but this actually was something that had activities for kids, mostly teens and up, and young adults, and it was focused directly for them to keep them busy, at those most critical hours.
So we added an hour or two a night, and aside from that, for example, the 5 to 12, there's an overlap of the regular activities plus this activities?
Definitely. I don't, talking about what happened at the park this summer, I don't think they canceled any of their regular programming, but they did additional programming. I know they had a community-based organization that did graffiti art, that did, I forgot the name of it, but they did T-shirt painting. They had Aztec Rising came out. They did boxing. They did handball tournaments. The rec staff did additional late-night sports like basketball, but they, instead of stopping at 8 or 9, they went to 10, 11, 12. They did food. They did music. They did skate park. Yeah, they brought the mobile skate park out. So once a week, I know 2 nights a week they had the pools that was open. The pool was open until 10 o'clock. So they did some.
Now, what was the experience of the level of participation? Were there evenings when they added these other activities and it was kind of slow, or was it?
They said at the beginning it was actually slow at the beginning. I don't know if you want to chime in. They said it was slow at the beginning. They said, but
from whoever can give me the most accurate information.
I'm Kabira Stokes-Hochberg from Council President Garcetti's office, and it was slow at the beginning, but overall I think we had 150 participants, individual participants, and I think it was somewhere around 600 to 700 individual times of participating. And as the word got out in the neighborhood, we would do neighborhood walks. We had a tremendous amount of participation from directly around the rec center. It was deemed very successful. I mean,
okay, but what we're going to try to do in the city from now on is we're going to try to figure out what is moderate success, what is the success that meets our expectation, What kind of success have we had where we exceeded expectation? Obviously, when we exceed expectation, we set the bar too low, and we realize, wow, there's a lot more need out there than we even realized, right? So my point is, what kind of evaluation, what kind of documentation, what kind of effort was done for us to look at this and to be able to analyze it and see not only did we have participants, but was it considered successful? Did we overshoot? Did we undershoot? What could we do better? If we're going to duplicate this in other parts of the city, what advice would we give them?
Right. Well, I think in terms of the things we tried to actually quantify and measure were graffiti reports for the actual rec center and the surrounding area. Graffiti did, it was lowered for that summer. The amount of times that the rec center director had to call it in for the actual rec center. LAPD's crime was down for the summer in that area. It was down in Northeast as a whole, but also in that area. And I mean, it was put together very quickly. So I think that right now, when we look at towards the next summer and what we can do, we did an evaluation afterwards. What programming worked, what programming needed more oversight, what we wanted more of, what the kids were asking for, what they're drawn to. We did a survey of all of the kids when they left.
Who's we?
I guess Rec and Parks actually did.
Okay.
The rec center director.
Okay. So Rec and Parks, the city council office
Aztecs
put
Rising.
forth the political will to say, we want to do this. And work with Rec and Parks. Rec and Parks said, we're ready to do this. Just give us the funding and the resources and the collaborative organizations to do these special events and stuff, and we're ready to rock and roll, right?
Yes.
And so that happened.
Yes.
It took place. How many months has this been going on?
Actually, it was just the summer.
Yeah.
It was the summer.
Okay. So when you say the summer, from when to when?
I believe it started in the July, around July 4th, and it was a 6-week program, went to the end
Okay,
of
6
August.
weeks. Okay, so 6 weeks, and the budget was $75,000?
That's what we had roughly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we had as a rough
A little
estimate.
more.
All right, we use round figures. So 6 weeks, $75,000, one park. Are there any efficiencies that we realized? I mean, if we duplicated it to the same scale in other parks or what have you, is there anything we could do to make it more efficient, but without compromising effectiveness and capacity and all that?
I mean, Ann and I come from the Class Parks program, so in our discussions in our office, I think the program actually is going to be incumbent on what the community has also to offer, because it's not just city services, it's those CBOs, and I think
Right.
the better the CBO in your area, the ones that leverage youth programs and things to engage youth, I think it'll be a better program. I think you can get actually more out of it. I think the two big programs they had, one being Aztec Rising, was great, but if you had 2 or 3 Aztec Risings in your community, I think you're going to get many more programs, much more help, and much more leverage. So I think it's going to be a case-to-case depending on what you have in your community and how our city family works with those CBOs to, add more and more programs. And I think, just knowing how it was put together very quickly, having time to plan is going to make it that much better also.
I would agree, and I would also say that we did absolutely pull from the community, but in terms of the aerosol art program, that was something that had already been established in other parts of CD13, not in Glassell Park, but we pulled it in. So we went directly in the neighborhood, but also pulled in from other areas.
So if we wanted to do this 6, 7 times over, would you recommend that we work with a $75,000 budget per park on average, or do you think it could be done for $50,000 and still get 6 weeks of effective? No?
And you want to speak on that? I'm sorry.
There was no full-time person running this, so you couldn't divide the program in sevenths, if that's what you're thinking. The existing staff at these sites with the CBO, it was mainly part-time hours that we used and a little bit of overtime, so that would be a cookie cutter at each site. Arts and crafts supplies and those types of things, you're not going to get a savings by doing it 7 times. The mobile skate van, or there's just one of them, so that would go from place to place, but you don't have a full-time person devoted to that. So I think the $75,000 pretty much would stand.
Okay. Now, do you have in writing the whole breakdown of how the money was utilized and all that stuff?
Currently, we don't. Like I said, I apologize. We weren't supposed to speak on the matter. We have knowledge of it, so we didn't want to, leave open mic here. So I know they did do full budget breakdown on the program from the summer, both the council office and our Rec and Park staff, but we definitely can do that.
Now, there's expected budget, there's actual budget, and then hopefully there's commentary about why certain line items were accurate, why certain line items were off, up or down, or what have you. It's nice to see a budget line item where you say 10,000, you say, we only spent 6,400. I mean, that's good. So what I'd like you to submit to somebody, whoever's in charge of this information, on whichever letterhead's most appropriate, to go ahead and submit to this committee that budget. In addition to that, include, even if it costs money, include what it would take to set up comprehensive evaluation and evaluation of program quality, evaluation of certain activities and pre-expectation, and information about how the activity took place so that you can compare that to the expectation and what actually occurred, whether or not not only the dollars, giving an opinion about what the dollars meant and how effective the dollars were, but how effective were the programs. For example, you may have certain activities like the skate park thing. You may come the first time and only get a couple skaters, and then the second time, a little bit more. And then if you end up having only 5 kids skating, you have to ask yourself, is that the activity for that neighborhood, right? Exactly. When you got basketball and you've got kids waiting around to get on the court. So that kind of thing, evaluating what seems to be the kinds of activities that are most participated in addition to that, what level of participation, and also we need, because we should be, if not experts, we should be good at what we should expect in certain neighborhoods, in certain parks. A park director in a park in Venice may say, these are the top 10 things I would love to bring to my park, which would be different than Glass South Park, which would be different than Brantford Park, right? Exactly. So the thing is, what we need to do is we need to be honest with ourselves and say, if we do this, what do we expect? What kind of participation do we expect? Be honest with ourselves and say, well, we're only going to do X amount of hours of basketball, extended basketball, but we expect that we're going to have kids waiting around. We're still not going to have, because we just don't have enough courts, right? So the bottom line is, we need to be honest with ourselves and say where we're still lacking, even when we add to the activities. Because one of the things that is unfortunate, and the only department, in my opinion, that actually doesn't worry about this is the police department. They don't worry about getting enough or not enough or what have you. All they need is the police chief to go up to a committee or what have you and say, we need more. Or if the politics gets real nasty and the mayor and the council members say, hey, slow down. All that person has to do is have a press conference and say, hey, I'm having a hard time keeping your streets safe. And then what happens? We get an outcry from the community, and the politicians say, all right, how much more do you need? And guess where that money comes from? And it comes from these programs. So what I want to be able to do is document where we're lacking. It's not about beating people up. It's about you being honest and say, look, city, we're in charge of Rec and Parks. We're in charge of these parks, these neighborhoods, or what have you. We have a lot of crime. We have a lot of issues. We don't have enough kids coming to our spaces. Maybe what we need is other things to entice them. Maybe we need more activities. We need more bodies. We need whatever it is that you need. Tell us what you think you need. But when we do give you something like this, we need you to be honest and say, it seems like we met the mark here. We thought we were going to have at least a dozen kids skating, which made it worthwhile for us to have it. And we had about 12 to 15 on average. Okay, we hit the mark there. Okay, we knew that we were going to extend the hours till midnight, and we realized for some reason on Thursday night, between 11 and 12, the court was empty, right? We thought the court was going to be full till midnight every minute we had it, whether we stopped it at 11 or 12 o'clock, we thought that the court would be full, but for some reason, on a particular night, the court was empty for an hour, right? It's not rocket science, and you're not geniuses. I'm not a genius, but the thing is, what we're doing is we're trying to guess educated guess, hopefully, about what particular communities would want and need, and you're fighting for the dollars to go ahead and say, if you give us these dollars, this is what we're going to have. But don't be afraid to say, okay, 7 out of 10 of the things we had were more than capacity. 2 out of the 10 things we had met capacity, and one of them just didn't. You know, when you come to at least my committee, I don't know about other committees, we're not going to beat you up. As long as you're able to tell us, this is what we did, but I'll tell you what, if we had this other activity there, we feel that it'll be just as full as the other 7 or 10, 9 activities, right? And then we say, okay, live and learn. Again, the only department that isn't worried about that is the police department. You know, shootings go up, what have you. What do they say? We don't say, you failed, we're going to pull cops. No, they say, we need more cops. And what do? We say, okay, we'll give you more. So we just keep throwing things at the issue. But when it comes to park and recs, when it comes to street service, when it comes to other areas, all of a sudden we say, well, I guess, you know, you're not hitting the mark, so we're going to deplete you of services, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So on this particular program that happened this past summer, for the sake of the potential success, if we're able to expand it in other parks, I would like you to submit to this committee as much of that, not only the numbers, but I want commentary about what took place, what was the expectation categorically per activity. In addition to that, you need to tell us honestly, we had the level of cooperation and expertise through our not-for-profits in these areas, and in some areas we thought the not-for-profits were going to be able to step up, and for some reason they weren't. Better than say, for some reason, communicate with those not-for-profits and ask them, you know what, you told us you could handle this, we did it, I'm not going to beat you up about it, but it didn't work out like you planned. What happened? They need to encourage them to be honest with you and say, well, we had 3 staff people on our not-for-profit, 1 person quit, the other person got pregnant that summer, and we were down to 1 person. It was an anomaly, right? Rather than saying, well, if they say, I don't know, we just thought we could do it and we couldn't do it. That's the kind of feedback we need. Because then when we ask other not-for-profits or those same not-for-profits, we need to encourage them to be honest with us and say, you need to tell us ongoing. If a week into it, you don't seem to be meeting your own expectations, guess what? You're probably not meeting ours. How can we make it better? Why are we going to do an additional 5 weeks? Maybe we'll pull that component and then put the money into some other components so that we maximize the service to the community. Instead of having, you know, you have 7 activities going on at one time, but there's 1 room empty, and you have some professional sitting there waiting for kids, and there's no kids. I think I'm talking about stuff that is logical, but when you look at the real world, unfortunately, when it comes to government, especially, people are very afraid to just be honest about why it didn't work out the way they thought it was, because the thing that they think about is defunding, or we're going to get a bad mark, or people are going to say we're no good. You know, that's not the case. Not in this committee. Not in this committee. I want to know what happened, how it happened, as equally important, what were the expectations, and what did reality play out? And then I want some suggestions, some recommendations from those people who are evaluating this, analyzing this, and tell this committee, well, this is what happened, this is the expectation wasn't met, but we got some feedback, and we think if we do these things, we will have meet the expectations that we thought the first time. Or, you know what, that program doesn't seem to work in that park, or that program doesn't seem to work with that age group of kids that we thought. If we just shove it under the rug, somebody's going to make that same mistake again and again and again. And we don't have extra resources. We just don't. I mean, luckily for this park, it was in the district of the council president, because I wasn't going to fund any new programs out of this committee. And he personally explained to me what his personal expectations were, and that he knew that it would be successful. And it sounds like it was successful, but we need detailed forensics on all that. Okay, and that's the level of evaluation that your department is going to need to give us. And every department that deals with programs as far as youth, anything that comes through this committee, we're going to need that level of detail. And before you finalize it or what have you, or as you're developing your evaluation system or pulling together the information you already have, talk to Eduardo with my office and then double check to see if that's the whole gamut of things that we're asking for. And then he'll go ahead, he may add a few things or tell you, oh, that's more than enough, it's wonderful, bring it all. Okay? All right. So if we were able to do this in other parts of the city, at least as of this moment, you feel comfortable that there are other communities in the city that could use this type of program?
Definitely. Definitely, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I always have to ask this question. If you find that you have youth that are, because I'm assuming that 9/10 of what took place was, you can categorize it as prevention type programs, right? Not intervention specific. If you have people who are likely to fall into the category of the constituent that is a profile for an intervention program, a gang member, someone with a record or what have you, do you turn them away?
No, I don't think so. I don't know why you would.
No, and in fact, I mean, I think one of the things we were most proud of was the quote-unquote gang members who would hang out on the steps, like up on the hill behind the rec center smoking marijuana, actually came down into the program and participated in a...
But they weren't smoking when they came down?
No. They left it up there. But when they came down, they would participate. There were a few folks who we had to ask to leave, and that, you know, we were like, this is too much rabble rousing, if you will. But we felt that it was successful, and especially because of the presence of LA Bridges and their watchful eye on what was going on. You know, if folks had to get out of there, they would make them leave. But we felt that in terms of intervention, in terms of those kids sitting up on those steps, that was intervention for them.
Well, you're right, that was positive. What you just described is positive. What I'd like you to add to this component is, in every single park, there needs to be a component where an intervention program is identified to be called upon in order to interact with that type of scenario. In addition to the preventionists, because they have to show that, you know, they're not going to be intimidated or what have you. It's their park, and, you know, we're just trying to help the kids, and y'all got to find somewhere else to hang out, or hang out, you know, respectfully with the crowd inside the, you know, the gym or what have you. But at the same time, have an intervention component where they're either compensated or they're willfully able to cooperate and put the kind of time and energy into it to complement the program. And if it means more dollars, then just say so, okay? Because I'm assuming that there is the need for intervention to go on around Glassell Park.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm hoping that there's some organizations who do intervention who are in and around Glassell Park, serving that area.
Yes, and we had them involved in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were they compensated?
Well, it was LA Bridges, and I think it was just
Bridges 2?
Bridges 2. Yes.
Oh, I was going to say,
Aztecs-
Bridges 1 is not intervention.
No. Aztecs Rising, and I think they just absorbed it into their regular schedule, so they were compensated with their salary.
Okay, well, make sure that they understand that we're not asking of them to tell us they can do it for free or tell us
Sure.
they can just adjunct it to their regular activities. If it's going to add responsibility and people hours from their organization, they need to be honest about what the level of compensation they would need to be a service provider for that component, okay? Because that's one of the things, again, that I'm not happy with this city. Certain types of services have assumed, and the city conveniently allowed them to assume this, that they need to figure out ways to continue to stretch and not ask for compensation. Okay? I mean, we have some interventionists who have told us, even again last night, I've been doing this for years. I've never received a dime from the city. And even at that moment, they're not asking for a dime. It's up to them to say, I need to be compensated. I want to hear that. I'm not going to tell them to say it. They got to want it. They got to say it. And then we're going to have to tell them it's not easy because you're dealing with government. But we can get there. Okay? All right. Is anybody here to make public comment on, how much time do you think you need to get back to this committee on that?
I don't know, because we have to deal with your office.
The budget process is going to begin and end in the next 60-some days.
I mean, we have documentation. If you can let me know who to work with. we
Can you pull
probably-
it together in the next 30 days?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll talk now.
Okay.
all right. Let us know, and then we'll report to this, you'll report to this committee.
Perfect.
Okay? Is anybody here to make public comment on item number 1? Public comment is now open on item number 1. Public comment is now closed. We'll hold this item in committee for future report in the next 30 days. Okay? Thank you. We'll now move to item number 2.
John White, City Clerk. Item 2, Department of Recreation and Parks report relative to the Watts Care 6 Sites Comprehensive Anti-Gang Initiative Grant Award in the amount of $80,000 from the State of California, Governor's Office of Emergency Services.
Emergency services? That's interesting. How was this grant identified, or how was this grant, who did they say this grant is for?
Again, we're pinch hitting.
Okay.
It was a Justice Department grant, and we forgot the motion, too.
And basically what we're told is it was brought to our South LA area for basically vehicles and money to get kids out of the community, is what we were told.
So it's mainly for some infrastructure?
No, it was for 2 vans,
Okay.
field trip tickets, to get the kids out of the neighborhood, to give them meaningful activities in the Watts area, and specifically Imperial Courts.
Okay, so basically, this is 2 passenger vans for $66,000, equipment and supplies of $12,000, 1 or more field trips to the Museum of Tolerance. Okay, but the good thing is, the vans last beyond 1 year, and therefore, they can utilize those vans for other activities.
Yeah. And this did go to Arts and Parks yesterday,
Okay.
and they did a presentation.
Does anybody know where the Tiger Woods Center is? Is that in Orange County or LA County?
I know it was someplace in Orange County, especially Cerritos area. I think it's in that area where he grew up, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah. Okay, I have some homework for you. They have some vans, and apparently the Tiger Woods Center is up and running. And I'm very proud to say that with a little bit of effort, when I was in the State Assembly, I was able to put together a little golf program in one corner of my district. And about a month ago, the father of a young lady told me that out of that program, she has decided to be a golfer, and she just got accepted with a golf scholarship to Cal Berkeley.
Wow.
So your homework is to find out how the Tiger Woods Center cooperates with other organizations, and I've seen commercials on television. It's a center that seems to be the only one that he has, but he's not saying that it's for Orange County or LA County. He's saying, this is my Tiger Woods Center. I want kids to have access to it, and I want to serve them. I want them to grow. It's not just about golf, it's about life. And it sounds like if somebody from Tennessee wanted to send a plane full of kids, they'll accept them. So my point is, let's figure out how we can access that center and get some synergy with them, especially with organizations that have vans like this in some extremely needy communities, and then report back to this committee on the future use of those vans, including future opportunities, including the Tiger Woods Center. Okay? How long do you think you need to get back to us on that?
We'll have to get back with staff. If we can have the same 30 days, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, just to, a caveat to that is we do, and we have our own, golf academy, a trade-in golf academy, which is state-of-the-art also in Griffith Park, and our kids do access, and with this van, they will be able to access that golf academy, and it's along the same lines. We will take a look and see if Tiger does more than just the golfing in, because we do pretty good.
I saw the commercial.
Okay, good, good.
It's, they teach them how to do golf and stuff, and like good programs do, that it's about discipline, it's about those kinds of things, and then they actually transition them into understanding that those are life skills,
Yes.
not just golf skills.
And that's exactly what our staff does also, but definitely we will look in Tiger.
Okay.
Thank you.
But, you know, when kids look up to certain people, and so far so good, Tiger seems to be as good a role model as anybody.
Definitely.
And I think it's important for the kids to be able to say, what, you know, when when kids go to a regular park, a regular event, you know, it's cool. But when they go to something that says, oh, that's Michael Jordan's place, or Tiger Woods' place, or Shaquille O'Neal's place, or Kobe Bryant's place, it has a different impact. And that, to me, I don't really care whose name is on there. If the kids get extra excited about it, then the next time they go play golf somewhere else or what have you, maybe they'll take it more serious. Maybe they'll realize that, you know, it's not just a regular activity. This is something that's going to open doors for them, you know.
Definitely.
So that's one of the reasons why I'd like to see if we can tie into the Tiger Woods Center, even if you decide that taking the kids just once a year. You follow what I'm saying? Or if Tiger Woods says, no, if you bring local kids, they got to come for 10 days each summer. And then you got to figure out, can we sustain that, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, if they're somewhat demanding that if we're going to allow your kids to come, they got to do a full program. I can bet you that program is extremely beneficial. You know, they're not doing it to be mean or to try to exclude people. They're doing it because they have a well thought out program that probably would have some tremendous benefit to the kids who participate. Okay, so report back in 30 days?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we're voting to accept this grant, or it's just a report of how the grant's being utilized?
Waiting for, excuse me, Ann Vollmer, Recreation and Parks. It's waiting for city council approval before they can accept the money. So they do not have the funds yet.
Okay, all right, so it'll be, anybody here for public comment on item number 2? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item 2 is now closed. So therefore, we'll move this item forward as a recommendation to the chair. Is this going to budget or just to the?
I believe the only other referral was Art Parks.
Okay. So
And it
we'll
went
go to-
yesterday.
It already went? Okay. All right, so it looks like it's going to go to the floor after this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you'll give a report back in 30 days on the Tiger Woods and other uses for the vans? Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the 2 items on today's agenda. Is anybody here for general public comment? General public comment is now open. Seeing and hearing none, general public comment is now closed. With that, this committee is now adjourned.